virtual mic and invite Dawn to introduce the rest of the panel and take over the event. Thank you, Dawn, for being here tonight.
Thank you so much, Svetla. Well, thank you all for joining us tonight, and welcome to this digital event. So I'm going to present our fantastic panel, and then we're going to go into discussion and some conversation. So first, I'd like to introduce Carolina Moscoso. She's a filmmaker and editor. She has a master's degree in creative documentary filmmaking from the Universidad Pompeu Fabra Barcelona. She has also worked as a director and editor of short videos, of animations, and visuals for different theater projects. VISIÓN NOCTURNA, which is in English Night Shot, is her debut film. She is currently in development on her next film, which I'm super excited to hear more about, called Nunca Seré Policía, or I Will Never Be a Cop. Amanda Ruiz is joining us from Mexico City. She is a Mexican artist whose work incorporates different modes of collectiveness, from art and craft teaching to participatory performances and activism. She is an active member of the Women's Committee of ATAP IWC in Montreal. Finally, we have Cerrucha, who is a Mexican feminist artivist who uses art as a tool for human connection and to foster dialogue on human rights issues. She works primarily with photography, performance, and the intervention of public space. Citizen participation is at the core of her projects. She holds a BFA in photography from Concordia University and works as an anti-oppression facilitator and consultant for various organizations. She has received commissions from UN Women, Foreign Affairs Secretariat, and the Mexican Congress, among others. So I'd like to thank all of you for joining us, especially our panelists. I know Carolina is in Valdivia, in a town called Niebla in the south of Chile. So it's very nice to all be here together, even if it's virtual, especially on this day, which is the day before March 8th. In fact, throughout the Americas, many events have already started taking place in the framework of International Women's Day, which really, when I think back, was the last major mobilization that many of us experienced in Mexico and in South America, Central America, before the emergency measures related to the pandemic kicked in last year. So in Mexico, there was huge demonstrations throughout the country, and so tomorrow, again, is March 8th. It's really important that we're here and we're also on the streets. I know many of the folks on this call will be also participating in different events, and maybe we can talk about that a little bit later. But Women's Day is about women organizing, resisting capitalism, resisting colonialism, resisting patriarchy together, as well as weaving our stories. So it's a really special time, and it's a big honor to be with you. We don't have a lot of time, so I wanted to start by asking Carolina a few questions about her film, Night Shot. And what I wanted to ask first, Carolina, is your film begins with a fairly long sequence that uses written voice and black screen. And I'm wondering if you can talk about what you were hoping to achieve with this unique approach to introducing the audience to the story through a kind of denial of images and through a certain kind of silence.
Hola. Mariana, ¿tú vas a traducirme la pregunta?
Sí, entonces la pregunta es, la primera secuencia de tu film es una secuencia bastante larga con la voz escrita, tipeada en la pantalla y con la pantalla en negro. Entonces, esta manera de introducir el film al espectador, o sea, ¿qué es lo que buscabas comunicar con esta manera de entrar en tu película?
Sí, bueno, cuando empecé a trabajar en Visión Nocturna y en esta película me di cuenta que era una película donde yo iba a trabajar en lo que pasaba después de una violación, no en una violación en sí misma. Entonces, para mí era muy importante en los primeros 5 minutos, o sea, que la película partiera con la violación y que eso era como una bomba que explotara y que que dejara todo corriendo, todas estas imágenes en desorden, para volver a construirse.
Thank you. So she said that when she started working in this film, she realized that what she was going to be working with was with well, the event, the rape, and that the main thing was to have the first 5 minutes be that the event of the rape, and to that she felt that it would be as starting with a bomb, and then after that, then she could go into the story with what happened next and even what happened before.
Entonces, cuando empecé a explorar las maneras en que esta violación iba a tener forma, cómo íbamos a narrar esta escena, porque hemos visto mucho cine hecho por hombres donde una violación se vuelve un espectáculo, ¿no? Yo tenía que pensar la manera de hacer todo lo contrario a esto que han hecho los hombres con esto.
So for her, it was important to explore in which way to bring the theme of rape and in the narration, the storytelling around it, because rape has been a theme that has been mainly portrayed by male directors and exploited as a spectacle. So for her, it was important. Sorry, not interesting. It was important to do the contrary. Go ahead.
Y en ese sentido, para mí trabajar con el texto escrito, con la voz hablada, con la oscuridad, eran las maneras de narrar este silencio histórico respecto a la violación y de transmitirlo como una sensación, sobre todo. Esta dualidad o más bien complejidad entre el silencio y el poder hablar.
So for her, the idea of working with the black screen and using text brought, it was a way of expressing a historical silence in this way, and to work with the duality of speaking about this and keeping silent.
Pero para terminar, para mí era muy importante que la violación fuera clara y al inicio, para que no generara ni expectación. No puedes hacer un spoiler acerca de violación, o sea, no tenía que ser algo que el espectador necesitara. Creo que por ahí va harto de la reflexión.
So for her, it was very important that the rape didn't become something that would generate a expectation or a later punch or also a spoiler for the spectator. She didn't want it to be treated in any of those ways. So this was a way of approaching it, expressed differently.
Gracias, Carolina. I had 2 more questions specifically about the film. So Visión Nocturna is really a gorgeous film, and it's very unorthodox as well, not only aesthetically, but also narratively, even just that first sequence that we just talked about. Sometimes the film feels a little bit familiar. For example, when you're showing pieces of the expediente and pieces of evidence from the state or speaking with the lawyer. And in other moments, it feels very experimental. It feels almost like a home movie, or it feels like an art film. So I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit more about your creative process as you built this niche or this really mixed film, and how your process led you to create such a compelling and original film.
So the question is, lo tengo que decir en español. Entonces la pregunta es, bueno, que es una película excelente y también con una estética muy poco ortodoxa y con una narrativa muy interesante. Y que, bueno, se ven dos partes, ¿no?, en tu obra. Por un lado, la parte más familiar o más íntima, no fue la palabra íntima, pero donde muestras partes del expediente, del diálogo con el abogado, y por otro lado, una parte formalmente más experimental, que podría también compararse a las películas, los videos caseros. Entonces, la pregunta es, ¿cuál fue tu proceso creativo para llegar a armar una película que pueda tener una composición un poco más como pastiche, digamos, en ese sentido?
Bueno, esto tiene mucho que ver con lo que hablamos antes, que es cómo se instalaba en esta estructura esta bomba al inicio, una bomba que es la violación, que es la herida, que es el dolor, como queramos verlo, y entonces qué iba a pasar después con esto, y en esta bomba para mí explotaron todas estas imágenes, entonces siempre imaginé esta película como la forma de volver a darle cierto orden a lo que dejó la bomba, ¿no? A esa explosión. Em, entonces, tuvo que ver mucho con una creación performática, y luego continuó.
Okay, so for her, this way of working has to do with that bomb that she was referring to in the beginning, right? The situation of the rape. So is installing this bomb in the structure of the film, and this felt like an explosion of images, and then he needed to then bring them back into order. And it had to do more with a performance action to beyond the film.
Sí, porque el encuentro con la forma que tiene la película solo nació de yo poder atravesarme por esta historia, atravesarme por las imágenes, por el dolor, por la felicidad, por el volver a sentir un montón de cosas y a través de esas emociones intuir un camino narrativo y nunca imponerlo hacia el otro lado. Entonces nació mucho del vivir esto para darle forma.
So this had to do with an encounter with the form of the film, in which all the pain that arises from the situation, she let herself be pierced by all these emotions, the pain and the happiness and all the gamut of emotions that were expressed in those images that she worked with. So as a sense of reappropriation of feelings, como una reapropiación de tus sentimientos, ¿no?
Sí, y era, de alguna manera yo quería mostrar cómo se vería un cuerpo si lo abriéramos, viéramos cómo siente, la operación de sentir. Entonces ahí yo me di cuenta que esta historia estaba atravesada por dos elementos que parece que nunca se tocan, que es la justicia y la vida, o pareciera, o al menos para las mujeres, o al menos para las disidencias.
So for her, it was a way as to show, as if we could see in a body, how a body, to open it and see what the feelings are inside. And then there was also a sense of a feeling of two things that are in different walks, that in opposition, that is justice and life of women and disidences.
Y creo que eso fue lo que finalmente, porque fue un encuentro muy final, es que yo me di cuenta que la película quizás rondaba el asunto de cómo la justicia y la vida parecen tan opuestas y el choque entre estas dos cosas. porque ambas cosas son íntimas, pero solo que una es legal, y legal quizá el mundo de los hombres, la justicia, el mundo de los hombres, y el mundo de la casa, del mar, del interior, de la familia, y cómo una cosa va afectando la otra.
So this bringing this together and this moment in the film talked or was organized around the idea of there's life and there's justice as two elements that are in opposition, in constant opposition. So there's the legal world that has to do more with men and justice that has to do with men versus a world that is more intimate, that has to do with the house, the sea, and family.
Y cómo una se afecta al otro, cómo la justicia
yes.
afecta a la vida y la justicia a la vida. No sé.
And then how they affect each other. So these two elements that are separate, but then how they affect each other constantly. Thank you.
Con las emociones en medio. Esa es la
And-
película.
And with the emotions in the middle of this constant feedback between the legal aspect and the more intimate. So
Thank you
that's the
so
film.
much. So finally, Carolina, I was wondering if you could share a little bit more of a reflection with us on how, in what ways working on this film was important for you in terms of achieving or struggling for justice. In this case that we see that there is so much injustice. And I'm wondering also if you could help us understand how you understand the film within a larger feminist art film.
La pregunta entonces es si Carolina, si podías hacer una reflexión en cuanto a la importancia del film en cuanto a tu lucha para conseguir justicia y también si podrías ayudarnos a entender el film con respecto, sorry, the last part it was help us understand the film con respecto a todo lo que tiene que ver con la lucha feminista y el contexto feminista.
Quería saber cómo entiendes la película y su contribución al arte y a las películas o al mundo del arte feminista.
Ajá. ¿Cuál era la primera parte? Perdón.
Sobre la justicia y cómo
Okay. Sí.
la película como ese vehículo para ti.
Bueno, la verdad yo cuando empecé la película, voy a mezclar las dos respuestas. Cuando empecé la película fue hace 5 años atrás. En ese momento el movimiento feminista al menos no estaba en esta oleada tan grande en la que estamos ahora y que empezó en Chile también hace unos 3 años muy, muy fuerte. Cuando partí hace 5 años de violaciones no se hablaba nada, menos en primera persona, entonces era una realidad, yo diría, muy, muy distinta.
So she will answer both questions intertwined. So when she started working on this film 5 years ago, the feminist movement was strong, but not as strong yet. It's been 3 years, around 3 years that the feminist movement gained more strength, and then it became more usual to speak about all these kinds of themes and rape, etc., in a more open way. But when she started 5 years ago, that was not the case still.
Entonces yo creo que lo que más sentía en ese momento era un silencio muy atormentador, muy ahogante, muy opresor. Sentía un silencio muy opresor y nunca había hablado de esto con casi nadie. Entonces, creo que cuando empecé la película, recién ahí me di cuenta de que mi juicio estaba abierto, que nunca había habido culpable del juicio. Eso fue empezando a escribir. Y fue ahí cuando me di cuenta que no podía hacer esta película sin entrar nuevamente a este proceso legal, por algo, bueno, por no tener esto pendiente, de alguna manera.
So, in that context, what she felt when she started 5 years ago to work on the film was a very heavy silence that was tormenting and oppressive. So she hadn't talked about what had happened with anyone, with almost anyone. And when she started working on the film, then she came to the realization that she had to reopen the case because that was it was needed for her to move forward because nothing had been or solved legally.
Claro, entonces creo que de los elementos más inspiradores para hacer la película fue mantener este juicio abierto mientras la hacía, porque a medida que el juicio se iba desarrollando, yo a la vez iba escribiendo más la película. En ese momento yo no sabía que finalmente no iba a haber justicia, obviamente yo pensaba que podía ser que sí, pero también pensaba que no, y realmente yo a ese momento ya no confiaba en la justicia patriarcal chilena, pero era un elemento que fuera cual fuera el final o el proceso, para mí estaba siendo un elemento narrativo de la película. Por eso hablo de que también tiene un elemento performático de crear desde esa realidad que te afecta constantemente.
So the fact of having the case reopened for her was an inspirational element. So as the case kept on moving forward, then she kept on writing and she kept on developing the film. At that time, she thought that there could maybe be a sentence, but at the same time, she was already not trusting the Chilean patriarchal legal system. So, la última parte. So that became a performance element of the film. This feedback between the process, the legal process going forward, and her developing the film and writing.
Entonces, como para la justicia en sí misma de mi caso judicial, no sirvió de nada, pero para tener una forma de dibujar la justicia en la película, creo que fue muy bueno el poder entrar a ese mundo legal con la película. Y en ese, sí.
So in that sense, there was no justice brought to her through justice, but it served the film in the sense that she could portray or make a drawing or portray the justice system in the film, including it in this way, even though it didn't have any reparation.
Y sobre cómo entra en este movimiento feminista de hoy, bueno, primero creo que eso no lo pueden decir otras personas, no yo realmente, pero sí yo siento que la película está inscrita en un diálogo colectivo que estamos haciendo mujeres y disidencias y que ese diálogo colectivo, universal, que hace que estemos conversando acá nosotras ahora, esta película está entrando en este diálogo y es una más de las voces quizás o de las imágenes más bien, de lo que estamos abriendo como reflexión feminista, me imagino.
So about the question about how this film inscribes itself in the feminist movement regarding art, she says that she shouldn't be the one to answer to that. Maybe other people could tell how her film is inscribed in that movement, but she says that the importance is the collective dialogue that is taking place, that generated by women and dissidences, and the plural voices. And what's important is that exchange of voices, and even the spaces that are generated and that are born out of this exchange, as for example, the panel discussion tonight. And what is important is to open space for this kind of reflection and the space to exchange.
Y sobre eso, sobre el crear desde el ser mujer, el ser disidencia, en mi caso ser lesbiana también, hoy es el Día de la Visibilidad Lésbica, y el crear desde ahí no solo significa eso, significa que creamos nuevas formas narrativas, nuevas maneras de hacer cine, nuevas estructuras, nuevas formas de enfrentar, por ejemplo, lo que es ser una víctima, por ejemplo, lo que hablaba al inicio, ¿no? De no hacer un show de las violaciones. Creo que seamos mujeres y feministas haciéndolo va a cambiar la forma de la creación, no simplemente el discurso.
So, and as creating as a woman or a dissident, or in her case, as a lesbian, what's important is to create a new way of storytelling. So what she was referring to in the beginning of this conversation, of not making a spectacle and out of rape. So to start finding new ways of storytelling that represent female and dissident voices, and that by doing so, then eventually there'll be new ways of storytelling that will be born out of it.
Okay, thank you so much, Carolina. I wanted to pass the microphone over to some of our panelists who are in Mexico. So I wanted to ask Amanda, your work has focused on the intersections of migrant justice, gender justice. You work between Mexico City and Montreal. So I'm wondering if you could share with us some reflections on your work and how it speaks to or connects with some of the themes found in Visión Nocturna.
Okay. Well, first of all, thanks for inviting me. I'm happy to be back at Concordia, even if it's virtually, and with this amazing panel. It's really cool to be there, to be here, there, whatever. So for the question, my work relates the way of doing art that is like a handmade labor that is invested in some object that could be a sculpture or drawing or collage or whatever format I want to make. So I like to work with groups, and through the handmade labor and the topic of the project, we start with discussions. And so I use all this time for creation that is collective, to start speaking about different issues that are not easy to open up to an audience or to to someone that you don't know. So most of my projects are based on workshops that I teach. For example, with the ATAP and IWC in Montreal, we made different projects based on this time together, creating something relevant and that comes from very sincere and specific issues from each of the participants that were women, migrant women workers without papers. So what I think that this kind of work relates with the movie, it's how the dynamic of a group that is working with art, you start to create different relationships that go from friendship or compañeras or colleagues or just people that share the same language that you speak. So there are different ways of making kind. So for the group that is part of my workshops, it is very easy to use that element of collectivity as a foundation for different political statements and ways to act and to fight for different causes. So for me, as Carolina showed in the film, that the process of art, it is also a process of self analysis, but also group analysis, and also like a social analysis of what is happening through our own experiences, and sharing that space and time of creation. It is it's a very powerful tool. So yeah, I think that's it.
Thank you. And I had a last question for Cerrucha, after which maybe we can open it up for discussion. So Cerrucha, your work exists at the intersection of art and activism, literally especially through the public intervention work that you do. And I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about your work, and also how it relates to some of the themes of impunity, justice, and healing that Carolina's film also touches on in a powerful way.
Sure, thank you very much. And also thanks for the invitation. And I would like to start by thanking Carolina for her film. I think it's one of the most courageous films I've ever seen about this topic. And I see that it takes us back to the basics, not to the personal is political, and how structural violence goes through our bodies as well. So to start, I think that is one of the strongest commentaries that we can do when doing art, to take it from the personal and take it to visibilize all the different structures that oppress us in different ways. And I try to do the same with my work. I think that the intersection with our project lies a lot within the visibilization of the violence against women, whereas it's rape, femicide, or many other different structural violences. And what I do is basically based in the transformation of protest, and doing it in different ways that we can also take it to a place of sustainability. And what I mean is, if I'm talking about femicide, I also try to mix it with a social intervention in public space that has to do with dance. And so I try to pair these things to be able to also sustain this kind of lucha, of fighting. And because in the end, this kind of work is a place of resistance. And so I see a lot of places of intersection, also the self-representation. I work a lot with photography, and I try to place my projects as platforms where people can take their spot and represent themselves, whereas what they're wearing, how they are representing themselves and painting themselves or drawing over their bodies. And then I will take this to public space. So there's different ways where I can do this. I've done photographs like the ones that we see here. I've been doing an archive of the social feminist movement from 5 years to the present. Also the importance of creating our own historical archive, in this self-representation, then putting it up as we paste on the streets. Also, I've collaborated to do a train in Mexico City subway system that's called Trinchera, and it's 9 trains, let's say, put together of women in a trench that have represented themselves in different ways, but that sound true to themselves. And so I feel that we have all these different ways of talking about these topics, and having strategies, because this is also a beautiful strategy where I truly can resonate with what Carolina was saying of having the feelings in the middle, and having justice and life and playing with them. And I feel, well, I can see how the structural violence takes this exactly. And that is the way that it uses to enact violence against us. So like in the movie, there's all this not wanting to give her the after day pill, asking twice, the re-victimization, doing these questions of, hey, what percentage certainty do you have that this person is the one, to doubt yourself. And then that is where all these feelings come in between. And of course, and I think it's so beautiful how she puts this legends like, I don't know why I said this, and this is exactly what we're doing. We don't know why we said that, but we said it, and we don't know why, but we didn't say it fully, And so I also try to create a space for us to say those things. I try to do it more in public space because I feel that it's a more quote unquote democratic space. I think it's just a place where a lot of people will be able to resonate with it, and also to occupy that space that has been denied to us. So in a nutshell, I also do a lot of workshops. I share that with Amanda, where I think that's part of the strategy within the feminisms, that you see that working collectively is part of what actually has an impact through your work. And so at the moment, I'm also giving workshops on art and activism and how to develop your own project. And that's where we're at the moment.
Really powerful reflection. Definitely, it's so interesting the way you position your work as well in those moments of interrogation. When I love that, Carolina, film when you said, like, I don't know why, and I was like, oh my God, totally so. But that honesty and hearing that self-doubt of each other is really powerful. So thank you. I see cameras. And before we go to audience questions, I was wondering if either Cerrucha or Amanda have questions for Carolina about filmmaking or anything about the process or anything at all that they would like to ask Carolina. Or please go ahead.
I would like to know, it is so important to get a kind of reparation, this justice that the state is not giving us, right? So I find art a way of us getting that from society, that kind of reparation. what would it be for you? Was this kind of a reparation for you, creating this film? Or a way of dealing with it in a different way? I mean, I don't know if reparation is the word.
Cerrucha, are you cool with translating your own question?
Absolutely.
Okay.
En esto de, o sea, creo que el arte es una manera de sanarnos a nosotras mismas, ¿no? También cuando el Estado obviamente no está ejerciendo ningún tipo de reparación ni de justicia. Y entonces, bueno, me gustaría ver cómo ha sido para ti el haber creado este documental, y para ti ha significado ese tipo de cierre, ese tipo de reparación, ¿no? Que al final de cuentas, todo recae sobre nosotras, ¿no? O sea, el exigir la justicia y el repararla si ellos no la dan, ¿no? En fin. Entonces, ¿cómo ha sido para ti el impacto personal de haber creado y ya terminado este documental?
Bueno, la verdad, claro, cuando yo comencé a hacer esta película y hasta que la terminé, la verdad yo nunca lo sentí como un acto ni de reparación ni de sanación. Em, Creo que para eso fui a mucha terapia, fui al psicólogo. Le recomiendo a la gente que vaya a terapia si quieren sanarse, que no hagan una película, puede ser lo contrario lo que suceda. Mariana, no sé si...
So when she's from the beginning, from the start till the end of working on her film, at any point she felt that she was getting any healing or reparation through that happened more with working with psychologists and in other spaces. So if someone was needing to find healing or reparation, she would mainly tell them to go find it in psychology and other places and not in making a film.
Y en un sentido más importante también, lo más reparador y sanador realmente de haber hecho la película es haber conocido el feminismo. No la película, pero sí haber conocido el feminismo a través de hacer esta película, creo que es realmente lo que ha reparado algo y lo que da cierta esperanza de alguna forma. Pero la película en sí misma más bien para mí es un desafío del arte, del pensamiento y de pensar respecto a esto, de reflexionar en torno a esto y también para mí de divertirme con el juego de crear. Pero sacaría de ahí la sanación. Creo que en este caso yo no le doy al cine ese deber. Prefiero no abordarlo desde ahí, pero sí el feminismo un lugar fundamental donde yo he logrado ir reparando cosas y sanando, sí.
So through this film, what has been fundamental for her was finding feminism, and feminism as a place to, yes, find reparation or connectedness. Then with the film, she doesn't think about that process as a healing process. She doesn't put it, she doesn't demand the healing attribute from film. But what was important for her was still to have this playfulness while making the film and exploring creativity. But what was very important for her was to having found feminism through the process.
Y, dale, está bien.
Go.
Que igual, más allá de que yo diga esto de que no, la película no sana, estoy segura que el hablar a algunas personas les ayuda y que el enfrentar las cosas y no mantenerlas en la espalda o sin mirarlas, de todas maneras, por lo menos abre las heridas o las abre para cerrarlas, supongo, no sé. Creo que de todas maneras mirar las cosas de frente sirve. Sí.
So she's saying that even though she says that the film process doesn't heal, she's certain that the act of talking about these things is important, and that it can also help in healing, and that is important to confront situations instead of turning our backs to it. And that if on one hand confronting reality can open wounds, then it allows to afterwards close them.
That question. Amanda, did you have a question or?
Yes. So I'm gonna join also to Dawn and Cerrucha about the fact that I really appreciate to see that hesitance about I don't know why I said that, or or talking about somebody else, that I don't know why he said that, and trying to connect that hesitation that is completely part of life. And that you said that when you started the movie, the feminist movement in Chile wasn't as active as now. So I'm wondering if sometimes I feel here in Mexico City, that the feminist movement, or our friends, colleagues, or compañeras, that sometimes we are very rigid, and we are in a state of constant judgment of each other, that we are very vigilant of what the other person is saying and why is she saying that there's no space for hesitation. So, and I'm saying this because when we have, for example, this case of rape, there's I believe that the movement is making a mistake to put the victim as there's just one kind of victim, and the victim has to say this. And if you don't say this, then we are questioning your own experience, even if we weren't there. And you are not part of the movement. I think we are in that spot, sadly, because it's a very active and very diverse movement right now. But also there are moments when this discussion start to become like very judgmental, and everyone wants to be the judge for somebody else. And of course, it is because we don't have a justice system. So it is very, we tend to do that, to be the judge, because there's no other judge. So it is easy to take that role. So maybe my question is that if you now you can feel that that you are free to express all those moments of grace and these different shades that you speak in the movie, the light and the darkness, and then the in between, and how you go through all these temperatures, and even that you can really feel it in the movie. That is not black and white. That you really go through different textures of feelings, emotions, and the body, that is very performative. So yeah, my question is that if you feel now that you can speak freely about that without the judgment of the others and not the judgment of the system.
Amanda, could I ask you to translate your question?
Yeah,
also,
sure.
in the meanwhile, I will.
Creo que entendí todo.
Okay, I just wanted to ask anyone who's watching or on social media or on the webinar, if they would like to put in their questions, well, we can open to audience questions after Carolina answers.
Sobre la pregunta de Amanda, creo que gracias por lo que decías. creo que para mí uno de los desafíos más grandes de esta película era no hacer una película rígida, binaria, no hacer una película binaria, y eso tiene que ver con ser feministas, ¿no? ¿Qué significa una película feminista? Significa muchas cosas, creo, y entre ellas el no binarizar, por ejemplo. Entonces, uno de los desafíos más grandes para mí era que fuera una película múltiple, incorrecta, que no respondiera a la buena víctima, ¿no? La buena víctima de la que se habla. ¿Cuál es la buena víctima? Le doy espacio a Mariana para que...
Gracias. So thank you, Amanda, for what you just shared and said. So the challenge was to make a film that was not binary. So to, instead of making a binary film, to make a film that is multiple, and make a film that is multiple and, sorry, can you?
Incorrect.
And incorrect, thank you, and incorrect.
Sí. Y bueno, es algo que es muy difícil y que creo que tenía mucho que ver con cuestionar la figura de la víctima realmente, con qué significa una persona violada. No puede volver a ser feliz, ¿sí? Y creo que eso tiene que ver, ya viéndolo más allá de la violación, con qué hacemos los seres humanos después de una herida o después del dolor. Porque a todos nos atraviesan heridas, traumas, cosas que no esperamos. Y para mí Visión Nocturna habla sobre todo de eso, es algo existencial. ¿Qué hacemos con el dolor? Y para mí la respuesta de no sé por qué dije eso, responde a que realmente no sabemos qué hacer en estos momentos extremos, no sabemos quiénes somos, qué hacemos, qué respondemos.
So the challenge and the hard part was what to do with these questions. So what is the figure of the victim? So is a person that has been raped, can that person be happy again? Can that person have the right to happiness afterwards? And then it's a lot of existential questions. What do we do with that pain afterwards?
Y la verdad, me preocupaba mucho el juicio de las compañeras feministas antes de terminar la película. Estoy de acuerdo con tu diagnóstico sobre esta policía feminista que a veces aparece, que tampoco podemos juzgarlo, y que se entiende según la experiencia de muchas compañeras que han tenido que reaccionar así también, ¿no? Entonces, yo aposté por hacer una película que pudiera equivocarse y que pudiera seguir aprendiendo también. Y me parecía que no dar respuestas era la clave para eso. Yo no quise dar una respuesta ni mostrar una experiencia perfecta, sino una y la mía. Creo que por ahí iba la reflexión, y justamente por eso estoy haciendo la nueva película ahora que se llama Nunca seré policía,
Está
que
increíble.
tiene que ver con esta policía interna que llevamos todas.
That's amazing. I would love to see that film. Thanks.
Yeah, I agree. I think we need that here in Mexico.
So I'll try to sum it up. So what she was, well, we had left at that existential, the existential questions about what do we do with the pain, but then she was also worried about being judged by people belonging to the feminist movement after she finished the film, as to well, what is being said about what happened and as a statement. But that's why she chose to make a film that is her take and is her truth, but without trying to give an answer or a perfect answer or a unique answer. That's only it's her way of viewing it. And then her work afterwards is also going in that direction. So the film that she's now developing, Nunca Seré Policía, I will never be a policeman, is also working in this vein.
Thank you so much. I wanted to start sort of bringing this discussion to a close and just taking advantage of being connected with folks in Mexico City and in Chile. If you could talk a little bit about the significance of March 8th, personally or more broadly, and what you think tomorrow is going to look like. I'd really like to know. I'm not sure if somebody would like to start. You want me to translate, Carolina?
Yes, please.
Pues sí, yo quisiera preguntarles, aprovechando que estamos aquí desde diversos lugares, también que nos platiquen qué significa para ustedes en lo personal o más allá el 8 de marzo y qué esperen para mañana.
Who start? Bueno, yo creo el 8 de marzo, bueno, es un día de recordar, quizás en mi caso, de recordar a las compañeras que no sobrevivieron, porque yo, si estamos acá hablando es porque somos sobrevivientes a una dictadura, al patriarcado y a todo lo que vivimos constantemente. Entonces, para mí, personalmente, el 8M es un día de dolor y de rabia. Yo recuerdo a mis compañeras muertas en femicidios, en lesbicidios, y la verdad es un día en que lo bueno es que nos juntamos y en esa unión colectiva, en esa fuerza, surge esta esperanza revolucionaria de acabar con el patriarcado y con el capitalismo por el lado. Y creo que eso es lo que conjuramos el 8M.
So March 8th is a Remembrance Day. It's a day to remember all the ones that did not survive and that did not serve. Well, she's saying we are here, but we as in Chile too. We're here because we survived the dictatorship and femicide and lesbicide and so on. So it's a day of much anger and pain. But the good thing is that with getting together in a collective way, then there's a revolutionary hope that is born from this of being able to take down patriarchy and take down everything that is inflicting.
And conjurar.
And to conjuring. I'm sorry, is the last.
No, it's perfect. Yes.
Okay, I'm trying to stop that.
Okay, so I'm gonna be next. So maybe following with what Carolina said about what can we do with pain and with trauma and all these experiences that are leaving deep wounds on our bodies and the social body too. So I think this is the day to transform that rage that sadness, that pain into a collective potence, you know, that if we are together in that date, of course, is very symbolic, but it's also to evocate this, as an evocation of the power of being together as a collective, as a single force that is going against the system that is, of course, patriarchy / capitalism / ethereal and binary system. So I think it's a moment of really feeling the absence of those women that are not here anymore, to feel them in our own bodies. It is really a performatic experience to be there and to become a choir of voices, that if you speak out loud something, you might be heard from 2 or 3 other people. But if there is a crowd saying and speaking up or screaming the same thing, it is very powerful and increases our own potence as an individual, that we can let's say with this virus language, that we can transmit that anger in an organized way, not like, okay, I'm going to throw you at your face my anger and my pain. No, it's more like okay, let's do something about it. And yeah, it's an evocation for organization and to see what can be next, because we cannot be all the time receiving the offenses and then reacting. Here in Mexico, we have this constant aggression from different levels of government, from the lowest to the president, that is constantly attacking the movement. And so we need, I believe we need to be more like a chess player and say, okay, this will happen all the time, because these men, they just don't understand, they don't want to understand. So what are we gonna do if we are just to spend our energies on each attack? Like, okay, now the president said that we are from what the last stupidity, I don't remember, but if we are just trying to contest every single attack, is like, okay, no, we need to administrate our energies and try to solidify these small groups of women that might be together for a very specific cause. Could be migration or workers or whatever. And within those small cells, let's try to make like a stronger body. So that's for me.
I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, for sure. I will add to what Carolina and Amanda were saying. I fully agree. And it's a space, a time and space to talk, to commemorate. It's a space for grief. And it's also a space for power and strength. So I feel it's very important to, in Mexico, a lot of people talk about the movement and why a lot of women are burning things and are painting monuments, and they are now going back to the origin of why we are doing these things. So I think so that's a very important point that we can also do during this day and the whole throughout the year. But it's a day for me personally where I gather strength. I go to the march and I talk to the people I know and I hug people. Hopefully tomorrow it's different, but You know, it's a place where you belong, and it's a place where you recognize the people are fighting in different fronts, you know, and it's a place where that gives me strength to keep on going. So, and at the same time, it's a place of grief, you know, and at the moment, I feel that in Mexico City, particularly, you can see this dispute of powers and of fear, and how fear is moving. And what I mean with that is moving from one side to the other. No, we talk a lot here of el miedo va a cambiar de bando, like fear will change sides. And I don't want to live in a world where fear is installed everywhere. That's not what I'm aiming for. But I can see it. No, we can see it right now. We have the Centro Histórico, the historical center, fully, how do you say, tapiado, surrounded with this metal, barricaded. There are barricades around National Palace. There are barricades around the Fine Arts Museum. There are barricades around every single tiny, not even monuments. Well, all the monuments, yes, but also like just small, ¿cómo se dicen las? El caballito.
Shopping center.
Also
Statues,
statues, yeah, you know, so you can see this. And then what does society do with that, especially obviously women? So there's this wall in front of Palacio Nacional, and now it's full of of a lot of the names of victims of femicide. And they put this, and then there's a response. So there's this conversation of what are you going to do next? No? And it's been very, very interesting to see how this has been changing throughout the years. And it's, in a way, at least for me, very empowering to see these changes, because there is an affection, so there is an impact of all the things that have been going on. At the same time, it starts to get scary because they are using force, from the police. And even a couple of days ago, Amnesty International just put out a document on that studies the increment of violence against the feminist movements and their our demonstrations in public space. So it is a very interesting time. Es un momento muy álgido. And it's a time where putting our bodies at stake is necessary, but at the same time is getting every day like the stakes higher. One of the last marches of feminist movements was reprimanded with bullets. So that has been happening in Mexico. So it hasn't happened per se in Mexico City, but the amount of police that they have been putting out on the street is freaking incredible. And I am very sure, and we were talking about that earlier, Amanda and I, that tomorrow is not going to be an exception. Let's see how it goes.
Well, I'm safe tomorrow on the streets. Before we close, I wanted to thank again Politica and the co-sponsors or the co-presenters of tonight's event. So Festival de Film Feministe de Montréal. Find them on Facebook or on their website, which is fffmontreal.com. And the 5th edition of their Feminist Film Festival is this September. And then finally, also the Women of Diverse Origins group, another co-presenter, and their info is also on Facebook. It's wo.fdo.quebec on Facebook. I don't know, before we say goodbye, if Carolina has any last thought or short reflection you'd like to share with all of us.
Bueno, ha sido un placer escucharla, compartir con Amanda, Cerrucha, contigo, Dawn. Y la verdad, lo que dicen de bueno, la policía y lo que pasa en las calles en Chile en este momento, eso está muy, muy fuerte. Estamos poniendo en jaque la institución de la policía. Se está pensando en desarmar la institución y crearla nuevamente. Y como movimiento feminista y bueno, como artistas y creadoras, yo creo que estamos en medio de esa transformación. Me parece que una clave del poder patriarcal ha estado de la mano de la policía. Entonces, me parece muy, muy importante lo que dicen porque claramente el movimiento feminista y lo que estamos también contra este sistema opresor de las armas en este momento y todo lo que implica la cárcel. Es algo muy, muy fuerte que está pasando y también espero que mañana en Chile pueda haber una marcha donde estemos a salvo las compañeras, pero es muy difícil en una realidad como en la que estamos, y por eso yo me atrevo a decir que estamos en dictaduras, en verdaderas dictaduras en este momento, en Latinoamérica o en Chile específicamente. Entonces, nada, estoy muy contenta de estar acá en este espacio de Canadá, hablando mujeres latinas y pudiendo ir abriendo el cerco heteronormativo masculino, ¿no?
Yes.
So,
Mariana, thank you.
Fue un poco
yes,
largo.
here. So she's very happy to be here, and she thanks Dawn and Amanda and Cerrucha for all that has been shared tonight. And what has been said about police presence in the streets, well, she's saying that as a movement, the feminist movement is putting the police institution in checkmate, the feminist movement, and also the arts movement, the creators. So police power has been hand in hand, has been existing hand in hand with male power, and to fight against that oppressive system now, even with the risk of jail and violence, is well, it's obviously unfortunate to have that risk, but that is important to fight against that oppression. And she hopes that we're all safe in the streets while fighting for this. But she also thinks that it's important to acknowledge that we're living mainly in Latin America and in Chile specifically. She thinks that we're living in a dictatorship because of this oppression, this constant oppression. But she's very happy to have been here with all of you tonight in generating an exchange and opening a space for sharing and well, here in Canada and in Chile through this.
Thank you so much, Mariana, for your translation.
Thank you
There's
so
no way
much.
we could have done this without you. Just to end off, there's a beautiful comment from Mari Botti, said that they had women of diverse origins had their rally in Montreal this afternoon, and that they sang their solidarity to women suffering, resisting around the world. And viva la solidaridad. So I think we can maybe close with that. Thank you all so much again to Mariana for the job, and to Svetla and everyone who helped us with the tech, and everyone who